Hello, and welcome to our interview, Innovating for a Better Society and a Greener Future, as part of Sustainability Week. I'm Kenneth Cukier, I'm the Deputy Executive Editor, and I'm the author of several books on technology and society. And today I'm going to be in conversation with Martin Yetter, who's the chairman of IBM Europe. Now, welcome, Martin.
Hello, hope you're well.
Hello. When people think of technology and they think of a green future and sustainability, for some, they see an obvious link. But for others, they either think, what is the link? Or is this just technical solutionism in which technology tries to expand everywhere, but it doesn't really fit? So, how would you respond to this first general question of what is the role of technology in driving the sustainability agenda?
I'd like to respond with three topics. First, if energy consumption and production roughly represents two-thirds of global greenhouse gases emission today, the speed at which we are able to change the way we produce and consume energy will largely determine the climate future of humanity. The role of technology and innovation in the energy transition, I would characterize the following way. First, without technology and innovation, we will not be able to meet this challenge. The energy transition requires physical and network infrastructure to be developed and deployed hand in hand with the associated digital infrastructure to accelerate clean electrification, greater use of renewables energy, enhanced emission reduction. That's point one. Point two, the case for acceleration digitalization of the energy system will become even more stronger as the proportion of renewables increases. So think about the number of electric vehicles will rise. The electrification of industry gathers pace. So we will have more on the demand side and we will have more on the supply side. For example, digitalization becomes critical to how you might manage demand patterns and energy flows in a decentralized energy system and in how this affects the build and use of effective large-scale environments like electrical vehicle ride sharing or goods transportation. So technological innovation is also what will enable us to effectively achieve our sustainable goals while solving the key challenges of energy transition. This
Okay,
goes
so
along with security, affordability, and so on and so forth.
without a doubt, you had mentioned that there were these three elements to it. I think I've heard two. What was the third dimension?
Um, that's the important thing that I believe that energy transformation, so introducing the digital part, can be done now. So it's speed. It's very important that we do it now. And of course, there is another role here, which is the collaboration with governments to facilitate balanced and consistent policy frameworks.
Okay, so before we talk about collaboration and how that partnership would work, I'm quite interested in the actual specific technologies themselves. Where do you think the biggest gains can be made with which technologies? What needs to change?
Well, first of all, when you think about, and let me use a little bit the telecommunication sector, when that industry transformed, we all were used to have fixed line telephony. It never broke, it was very robust. Then we moved into mobile, and suddenly, even today, we see that lines are breaking, that we don't have the reception. Now, when you move from an extremely robust grid with only a few responsible for the demand and a few for the production of the energy and the transportation, and suddenly you open this up, energy can come to the grid from various sources, different type of energy, different created from various sources. So that's the side of the supply. And the demand side is completely shifting. So in order to manage this significant demand and supply, to match it, you need a platform. And here digitalization comes in with being able to build out these platforms in a very secure way in an open way. So you use technology where everybody can participate and it goes cross-border. So here is a very important step. Technology can enable these transformation by building out these platforms. And along with that, of course, security, access for everybody, and so on and so forth.
So the vision of, for example, having a platform marketplace approach to energy provision rather than the sort of siloed sort of and sort of hardened system that we have today, which has, as you put it, few producers and large demand networks jutting out from them, that hub and spoke network into something that looks more like a web. It's a great vision. How would we actually enable that to happen in terms of who would pay for it? It feels very costly. It's not so certain there's a centralized actor who would have the resources to make the investment and would capture the gains of that investment. What would be your vision, a model for how this form of retrofitting the economy through technology for sustainability would take place?
Well, first of all, you will need to use capital markets for the financing. It's not possible that only a government is funding it or the European Union. You will need to use the capital markets like in any industrial revolution. And I call this more an industrial revolution than a simple transformation, given that everything needs now to happen faster and with a much higher speed. So, from that perspective, I think we will see the rules and regulations, the governance will be set. The objectives are very clear already, and I think the objectives will be pulled forward. And then you will see on the other side, the ones which are building out the grid, they will make the investments. And here the first point comes in. If you want to make an investment in the energy industry, you talk about an horizon 8 to 10 years. So they want that their investments are secured and that they can rely on the decisions. And these investments are already happening. Second approach is, and we see this all around, people are not starting on a green field or brown field. They are starting to enable already existing environments. So let's give you a few examples. National Grid in the UK, they are already implementing a digital energy management system. It is in development. They are working with us. Or Tenant from the Netherlands, which has a strong operation as well in Germany. It's another grid management solutions. So this is not happening from today to tomorrow. Everybody understands the digitization offers opportunities, and they start already in bringing the digitization into the existing environment, and of course into the new environments which need to build out. For example,
So,
platforms we have, for example, with the city in Copenhagen and a partner of IBM, a company by the name of Andel, we are working a flex platform for energy distribution.
okay, so there's a role for government here. We can agree, not just capital
Yeah.
markets. Government can actually spur capital markets. So, what would you suggest that government do as an enabler for this vision, and what would you maybe point out that they should absolutely not do? And are there any examples of who gets it right and who gets it wrong?
Well, first of all, I think when any technology comes to the market and you don't have reached economy of scale, so right at the beginning, the cost of using this technology is very high. And very often, this market entry, the high cost, are a barrier of adoption. So, my suggestion as an example could be we have a projection. We know when we want to be CO2 neutral. We exactly know that. So at that point in time, we have to have an imagination of the cost of energy. And the delta between when you have economy of scale and today, that's additional cost. And those costs could be financed, could be supported from the EU, from the business, as well as from the government. And that would lower the entry barrier, so faster adoption of the technology, faster adoption of renewals, and then you get the effect that this gets a very, very strong dynamic. Now, to the opposite point, what the government shouldn't do, we shouldn't change significantly the direction we have given. And the reason for that is, as I said, when you want to build such a grid, when you want to build an offshore wind farm, when you want to use renewable, this is heavy machinery, equipment, engineering, investment cycles of 8 to 10 years. And you can imagine if you need to put billions of US dollars, euro, or pound into operation, you want to have the assurance that what you are doing is supported during that period of time. So it's important that governments make the commitments to stick to these decisions and to these investments.
Do you think there's a role for industrial policy? Should government go in and be the buyer if the private sector isn't stepping up to the plate?
Well, I mean, a very interesting acceleration, which I have seen in some countries, is, for example, if the government says for all the governmental consumption, we only buy renewable energy. That's a big statement. Think about how many governments we have in all of Europe, how many constituencies, and not only the central government, as well the decentralized government. That's already a strong buying commitment, which gives on the other side some incentives to companies which are providing the technology to jump faster to renewals.
It would be interesting if you could imagine other companies getting some form of tax rebate if they only buy from renewable sources as well.
That could be easily imagined as well. Now, in all these discussions, we should not underestimate one element, which is bringing the citizens along. The use of this technology will not come easy. It's change. Change bears uncertainty, and everybody is not necessarily a friend of change because of the uncertainty. So, and I do believe that before we get to the real CO2 neutral environment, the road will be bumpy. This is not paved. This is not a highway or in German an Autobahn. This will take time. It will take effort. And in some instances, we may need to accept to personally use less cars at home, switching off the lights earlier. So I believe we are not getting to this new world very easy. It will take effort and it will take, let's put it this way, even some personal sacrifice we all have to make.
Do you think that there's a way for that personal sacrifice to be sort of smoothed out through technologies? What I'm thinking of, for example, is many people are buying, products in the home for energy saving devices, not just LED light bulbs, but say smart home devices, so things turn on and off. They're more efficient. Is there a way to
I
actually use that goodwill that's happening at the residential level to sort of spur a more social wide ethos towards the sacrifice that needs to be made?
Absolutely. From my perspective, it all starts that we educate, that we train people. Very often, the uncertainty comes along with people simply don't know. They are afraid because they are not well informed. So I think we need a significant campaign across Europe, and not only Europe. I'm just speaking here in Europe. We This is worldwide. You need to have informed people. When you inform them properly, when you show them the opportunity, then I think that's a significant motivation. And last but not least, I think it is a moral obligation of everybody. I mean, I'm European, we lived the last 50, 60 years without any disruption. We have consumed energy, we have consumed sources of this planet well, well in advance of most probably we should have done. So I think we all together, we have a moral obligation that the world for our kids, for the next generations, offers them an equal opportunity in terms of consuming fantastic things, traveling around, experiencing and learning from each other. And I think for all of those, we need a careful management of energy and we need to preserve our planet. And I think that's a moral topic we should not underestimate. If it's well and properly communicated, I think it's a great, great motivation for everybody.
I agree. I think what's interesting, in fact, is that as large institutions, whether it's government or large companies or on the residential level, uh, uh, families are actually becoming more sustainable, there's a sort of a beacon effect. It sort of spreads out the message to other people, and people can understand that moral imperative by dint of the actions that some people have taken. So I look forward to seeing how this develops. Thank you very much. Sadly, we're out of time, but I want to thank you, Martin Yetter, the chairman of IBM Europe, for this eye opening conversation about how technology can be used for green goals. I want to thank our listeners for being with us. And to the audience, stay tuned for the next session, which will begin shortly.